This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, I'm bringing back a returning guest. He was on my show back in October of 2018. We're talking about CUV Ventures Corp. You can find them on the TSX up there in Toronto under the ticker symbol CUV. And with us today, we're very fortunate to have him as the CEO of the company, Mr. Steve Marshall. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Everett. Nice to be back on the show.
You know, it's been a little while since you've been on the show, about 4 or 5 months. Give my new listeners a little bit of about statement of who you guys are and how you make your money, and then I want to do the Q&A.
Right. Well, we are a tech company primarily. We work in various sectors. We have a proprietary programming team, and we do all the in-house tech and programming. And basically, we're in numerous sectors. We have various verticals, but the central focus of our business is RevoluPay. RevoluPay is an Android, iOS app which allows distance payments to be made, payments through to remittance, through the remittance cycle, sending money across borders, and that particular payment system, which is proprietary to us, we own the source code, is also linked to various verticals that we have, which obliges the use of our proprietary app for the payment of services. And those different verticals we can talk about a little later on, but they're anything from utility bills, travel services, telephone top-up services, and many other, and we also have a finance division.
Well, let's stay on that subject. You know, I heard that's about a $700 billion industry. How is that progressing for you, and where do you go from here?
It is progressing well, thanks, Everett. I mean, we already have the ability to be able to deliver remittances into bank accounts in 73 countries. We're currently working on accords with various high-level banks to 16 more countries in Central, South America, and also the Caribbean. And we're also looking at Asia. So, we're looking to be, if we can, at around 150 countries by sort of July, August of this year. And with various delivery mechanisms too, Everett. Obviously, the receipt of the remittance and then the transfer to a bank account of the remittance recipient is obviously the easiest. But we're also focused upon the delivery of cash for people who are not banked. And then we've just added actually our prepaid Visa linked system, which allows each app user to request from us a prepaid Visa that they can load from the app. They can both add money and remove money from the prepaid Visa, and to get people in these high volume remittance countries banked, get them right, using electronic payment mechanisms.
Well, let me ask you this: if I'm listening to the show right now and I want to download your app, RevoluPay, how do I go about doing that? Where can I find it?
Well, it's real simple. You go on to Google Play, you put RevoluPay, and you can download the latest version. And on iOS, you put RevoluPay, and you can download the latest version. It's really simple. Sign up, you join immediately. You can load the app with money using a bank account, credit card, debit card. There are multiple ways of loading the app with money. You can then transfer the money to anybody else who has a RevoluPay app. So, the scenario is real simple. You have a family member who lives in, let's say, Ecuador, and you live in Toronto, and you tell the family member to download the free app. You load the app in Toronto. You choose their name in your contact list. You tell the app how much you want to send them, and instantaneously, within seconds, the money arrives and shows up on the screen. And the cool thing about RevoluPay is that what shows up is exactly the amount that was sent. So if you send $100, $100 shows up. Probably aware that, like the bigger players in the remittance industry, The sender shows up with $100, but then the brother who lives in, let's say, Ecuador says, well, thank you for sending me $80, right? So there's $20 lost in the process, and the sender feels unhappy about that. So, this is another one of the milestones that we've achieved where the beneficiary receives the real amount that is shown, and then obviously there's only a charge if they decide to use it. And, there's another thing I'd like to add, Everett, and that is that RevoluPay can also be used in businesses. We just signed an LOI with a company in Guatemala, San Salvador, and basically they have 650 supermarkets and pharmacies strewn across those two countries. And people can show up, who receive the remittance can show up and pay for groceries, pay for pharmaceutical items or whatever, using the app directly. And obviously the fees for those sort of payments are drawn from the merchant rather than from the beneficiary of the remittance. So, this is a win-win situation for those that are living from day to day with remittances, and that's what we've focused upon as a company.
Before I get to my second question, I do want to briefly ask you, how do you guys make any money on this if I send my brother $100 and there's no transaction fee? How do you guys make money on this?
Right. I mean, obviously, if the beneficiary decides that instead of paying with the app in commerce, as if they were to pay in, let's say, a supermarket for groceries, as you're probably aware, any commerce that accepts Visa, MasterCard, or any other electronic payment actually pays for that service, and the cost of that is hidden within the price of the product that you purchase, right?
Correct.
So, merchant fees are very common, and while the consumer doesn't know much about them, they are common. We have managed to put ourselves below the main threshold of the bigger players, charge less. So essentially, that's how we make our money, the percentages on the merchant fees. If the person shows up in a supermarket or in a pharmacy, as I mentioned, and pays with the app, then, of course, we are being paid by the supermarket. But we're also doing something else for the supermarket or the pharmacy. We're actually sending them clients, right? So, they're saving on marketing. And so there are all sorts of advantages for using the app in that manner. Then, obviously, if the person who receives the money wishes to merely have cash, then they show up at the banks that are affiliated with us and they draw out the cash. And at that moment in time, yes, there is a fee. And so that fee, but again, I mean, it is much, much lower than the competing entities that are currently involved in the remittance cycle. And as you've mentioned, it's a $700 billion business. And we think, and we know that it needs disrupting. There are a couple of main reasons why. One of them, obviously, is the cost. Sometimes these costs are exorbitant. But the other sort of psychological benefit is that the brother sends $100 and the family member receives $100, right? If they then wish to draw out cash, then they have to, they understand through the app that there is a cost to draw out the cash. But if they use the app in the stores, they're getting a 1-to-1 ratio, and they actually don't see any loss whatsoever.
Rumor has it on campus that you guys are doing a letter of intent with a real estate company. And I was wondering if you could give us the name of that and what is that all about?
Yeah, we've already signed the letter of intent. That is New Condo. New Condo deals with new condo developments, primarily in South Florida, but they're expanding worldwide right now. We're just actually creating synergy with them. The concept is that RevoluPay be utilized for as many payment systems as possible. So the real estate industry is rife with payments to notaries, HOA fees, inspectors coming to the property, these tiny closing costs that are associated with buying real estate, and then obviously the final purchase price of the unit. You can have up to 10 separate, really tiny costs included within a real estate purchase. And so through New Condo as our initial partner for the real estate component of the app, the app will be incorporated into New Condo. It will allow buyers to seamlessly pay all of these real estate associated charges quickly, directly, instantaneously to the notary, to the escrow agent, to, you understand. I mean, it's just a more efficient method. So we're breaking out into that industry, and that's something that we see a lot of potential in. And it's just another use of the app, right? That's basically what it is. New Condo will be our future partner. We have an LOI. We're just approaching DA stage right now. But, we see a lot of future in that, especially on an international standpoint.
Company that we're highlighting here today on Stock Day is CUV Ventures Corp. You can find them on the TSX under the ticker symbol CUV. When they came on the show back in October of 2018, their stock was trading around 9-10 cents. Now it's trading around 75 cents. That being said, I see that your stock is up over 400% in the last 3 or 4 months. Are there any vertical generating revenues through that RevoluPay that's going to be hitting the next quarter? Or what can we expect, and why such the big growth?
Well, obviously, because of RevoluPay, we're looking at two very important issues here. One is that RevoluPay is currently operating through a banking license, a third-party banking license. We have an indefinite agreement to use that license, but we've also pursued our own PSD2 license. This is a banking license from the European Union that has a world focus. And once our app is functioning under our own license, then we obviously are going to recuperate and trim off certain percentages that are payable to third parties when you don't have your own license. But the expansion of the app is also going to be fundamental once we have our own money transfer banking authorization. We submitted that, Everett, on the 23rd of November. There's a 90-day period, statutory period for approval, which ends on the 20th of February. We're very confident that will be approved, and we're working right now, actually, in the last couple of days, in getting the final paperwork prepared that we were asked for. So, yeah, I mean, it's looking very good. And there's a lot of anticipation in the market, of course, of us getting this banking ability.
My guest today is Steve Marshall. He is the CEO of CUV Ventures Corp. In closing, Steve, is there anything that we haven't touched upon you would? And then my second question before I let you go, what would you want my listeners to take away from this interview?
Well, obviously, Everett, we've spoken last year about what we intended to do. We have now fulfilled just about everything that we promised the market last year. There are a couple of verticals such as RevoluVIP, which is currently in final beta testing. We have members using that particular system now. RevoluCharge, we talked about that in October. That has been launched. It was launched on November the 1st and it has gone through various changes. It's already generating revenue. RevoluVIP is generating revenue. RevoluFin is up, which is the finance division. In fact, in this particular month, we get final approvals to start handing out loans with that. And now we're going to be working on the RevoluUtility and the real estate division to have the app functioning in as many verticals as possible in a closed-loop financial operation.
Steve, I want to thank you for stopping by. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I wish you nothing but continued success, and congratulations on the over 300% rise in your stock price. Again, hopefully you'll come back on the show in 50 days and give us an update of what's going on.
Thanks, Everett. I really appreciate it. You guys have a good day, okay? Thank you.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.